Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the news and rumors on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I'm Daemon Hatfield, and as always, I am joined by Jonathon Dornbush, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond.
Beyond. Hey, Daemon.
Hello there. And Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
They put us back in our virtual boxes here, Daemon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I'm all alone here on the lonely IGN set here in LA. But there's lots to talk about this week. We now have both the PlayStation and Xbox Summer Showcases behind us, and we're going to register a grade. Both Jonathon and Ryan are going to grade their respective conferences, so we'll see how things shook out, whether or not they both platforms put on a good show or not. Let's start with PlayStation, since PlayStation went first this summer, and both PlayStation and Xbox took different approaches to their summer showcases. PlayStation's was much shorter, 30 minutes, but it was packed full of really big games. We got the final reveal of Resident Evil 4 Remake, there was Street Fighter 6, Callisto Protocol, and Final Fantasy 16. Lots of good stuff, lots of exciting stuff. But it's worth noting, most of these games are coming next year, with the exception of Callisto Protocol, and Final Fantasy 16 is the only one that's exclusive to PlayStation at the moment. So, Jonathon, what did you think of the most recent PlayStation State of Play?
In terms of other State of Plays, I thought this was a pretty fantastic one. I tweeted out when the show happened, I think I said that this is the best State of Play ever, and barring one or two that I'm probably forgetting, I pretty much stand by that. I think we've talked about it a bit on the show in the past couple of weeks leading up to these showcases, but PlayStation State of Play is different from their showcases, and so, in terms of expecting a big blowout, what Sony first parties are working on, what that next sort of year salvo or more looks like from them specifically, we're probably not going to get that till September, and so, I'm waiting for that. But in terms of a State of Play itself, I think this was a really fantastic one. I think the third-party reveals were phenomenal. I don't really think we've gotten such big third-party announcements or trailers as often in State of Plays as we did here, between, as you were mentioning, Resident Evil 4, Street Fighter 6, and closing with Final Fantasy 16. Between announcements and just deeper looks, I think that is just a phenomenal lineup for a State of Play, especially because games like that are often in the showcases. But, in terms of the other stuff that was shown there as well, I think, looking ahead to the short term, obviously, as you mentioned, the Callisto Protocol is coming later this year, and they seem to have at least a marketing partnership with PlayStation at the moment. But the emphasis for this State of Play seemed to be, for the short term, showing you what the cool lineup of indies is going to be coming forward on PlayStation. So we saw Stray, Rollerdrome, Tunic, which was, of course, earlier on Xbox and PC this year, and as well Season, which are sort of coming kind of back to back every month for the next 3 or 4 months as a really cool sequence of PlayStation console exclusive or ported over indies to come. So people have that to look forward to. And I thought the PSVR 2 showing was pretty good on the whole. I think the best part of it was Horizon Call of the Mountain, the sort of marquee showpiece for what first party is doing right now for PSVR 2 as far as we know. If anything, I just think including PSVR 2 here was kind of a weird choice. I think it was really exciting to see, but as of right now, especially with them not mentioning a date or reveal window or anything like that, I have a feeling that is a 2023 launch we're looking for. And so in terms of a State of Play airing at the beginning of the summer, I don't know if we needed that in there when so many of the other big games were also 2023 focused. That said, I would, expect PlayStation to start to answer some of the questions we have going forward from them in the coming months. And, they even answered a question at the Summer Games Fest with showing The Last of Us Part 1, coming in September. So I expect we'll hear more about their short-term and long-term plans soon.
So what grade would you give the most recent State of Play?
I'd say a very, very solid B+. Again, I think more of the... including some stuff in there that I don't think needed to be there during this window of time is kind of why I'm knocking down, but I'm very much hovering on the B+ A- line. I think it was a really phenomenal, well-paced show, especially during a time where we've gotten several longer or even some shorter shows that probably didn't need to be the length they were. I think this was a very well-produced, tightly packed, and full of just big, big stuff. So a really great showing.
Okay, so a B+ for Sony's State of Play from Jonathon. Ryan, the Xbox and Bethesda showcase was much longer. There was room for a lot more games there. The highlights, I think, for me were Starfield and Redfall gameplay. A bunch of Riot games coming to Game Pass. Forza Motorsport, I guess sort of a reboot of the Forza Motorsport series. We got a release date for Scorn in October. Minecraft Legends announced. Naraka Blade Point coming to consoles, although it's also coming to PlayStation. Pentiment, very interesting looking new game from Obsidian, I believe. Grounded is leaving early access, and then Diablo 4 and Wolong Fallen Dynasty. That last one, a new game from Team Ninja, and the last two games are both cross-platform again. So, lots of big games in there, Ryan, but kind of similar to Sony, nothing really big coming for the rest of the year, although everything is supposed to be out. It has a release date planned within the next 12 months. Nothing big for the rest of the year, and a lot of big games are missing. No Fable, no Perfect Dark, no Avowed. Not even Hellblade 2, a game I was absolutely sure we were going to get a release date for later this year. So, Ryan, what was your grading for the Xbox and Bethesda showcase?
Well, you hit on some of the highlights, Damon, and I think the choice that Microsoft made to focus it on the next 12 months was a good choice, and maybe even one they had to make, because the narrative has just increasingly become, where are all the games for Xbox, which, of course, if you're an Xbox player, is a narrative you're all too tired of at this point, and understandably so. After 2021 was such a bright spot with Halo Infinite and Forza Horizon 5 and Psychonauts 2 and a few other smaller time exclusives, there was a lot of momentum coming into 2022, and then 4 major delays really hurt the 2022 lineup for Xbox. We, of course, had Starfield and Redfall delayed out of this year, and then 2 very promising third-party exclusives that were unfortunately delayed for the absolute worst of reasons, that being the developers are Ukrainian and war came to their literal doorstep. So Stalker 2 pushing to 2023 along with Replaced. So that really made it a tough, all that combined made it a tough 2022 for Xbox, and that's, I'm sure, why they decided to focus this conference on the next 12 months. Now, that said, we do now know what 2022 looks like for Microsoft, and it's good, but as you said, Damon, it completely lacks any heavy hitters. So the 2022 exclusives, we've got High on Life from Justin Roiland, which I think was one of the sleeper hits of the show. Warhammer 40k Darktide, which I played. I have a preview up on IGN. That is a very fun Warhammer meets Left 4 Dead game. You have, not exclusive, but going to Game Pass, you have A Plague Tale Requiem. And then we had some very cool-looking expansions, a Flight Sim expansion, the Hot Wheels DLC, which I have behind me for Forza Horizon 5, Fallout 76, the Pit DLC, and then Sea of Thieves Season 7, and then some other things mixed in there as far as new titles. You mentioned Scorn, Damon. That is that one should be promising. That's coming out at the perfect time, spooky season, October. You have Gunfire Reborn, As Dusk Falls, Pentiment, which you picked out. That's from Josh Sawyer's directing that one. Who's most, he has a very decorated resume at Obsidian, but probably that resume is topped by Fallout New Vegas. And then Grounded, as you mentioned as well, coming out of early access. So still plenty of exclusives to look forward to in 2022. Just nothing that you want to run out and buy the console for. Now, plenty of people have been going out and buying the console regardless, but that's 2022. And then, all right, well, what's the second half of that? The first half of 2023 is where things get a lot more interesting, because you've got Starfield, Redfall, Diablo 4, of course, Diablo 4 won't be exclusive, but Forza Motorsport, which again, that, as you mentioned, Damon, that reboot. And one thing I'd like to point out about Forza Motorsport, it's rebuilt from the ground up for next gen only, and Fable, which, as you noted, we did not see, is going to use that Forza Tech engine. Obviously, they're going to modify it to make a third-person character action role-playing game, action adventure. But all the gorgeous water that you saw, the gorgeous trees, that foliage, all that is going to be what Fable's going to build off of. So that's just an interesting footnote to keep in the back of your head. And then you mentioned Minecraft Legends in the first half of 2023. Arc 2, which that's probably going to be a really big deal. Lightyear Frontier, The Last Case of Benedict Fox, which, Damon, I know you and I, as fans of Limbo and Inside, that one was a nice standout. Erebon Shadow Legacy, Ravenlock, Cocoon, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, and Flintlock. So that's the scope for the next 12 months. And so based on that, I would go with just a tick lower than where Jonathan went. I'm saying solid B, just a B for this conference. I think Microsoft would have done themselves a service if they had messaged ahead of time that this conference was going to be all about the next 12 months, because the fact that they did not, it means those no-shows. You mentioned Hellblade 2, Perfect Dark, State of Decay 3, Fable Avowed, The Outer Worlds 2, no Gears 6 announcement, no Everwild continues to be MIA, Contraband announced last year, haven't heard a peep from that recently either, and then the heavily rumored to the point of achievements leaking GoldenEye remake. None of that was at this conference, so I think that's where some people were justifiably let down. But overall, I think a strong showing. I think they could have messaged it a bit better ahead of time, but I'm going with a B for Microsoft.
All right, well, there you have it. B+ for PlayStation and B for Microsoft. Dear viewers, do you agree with our PlayStation and Xbox representatives' assessment of these showcases? Be sure to share your own grades for the Xbox Bethesda Showcase and the PlayStation State of Play in the comments below. Now, we have the results of last episode's poll. We asked you, what upcoming game are you most excited for? And the results may surprise you. Coming in number 1 was Callisto Protocol, which I'm very happy to see there. That game looks awesome. We got 2 really good looks at it recently. It wasn't really on my radar until we got the gameplay trailer at Sony State of Play, and then I believe it was Summer Game Fest that had a gameplay demo. That game looks very, very cool. It's beating out games like Modern Warfare 2, Last of Us Part 1, Remake, and Street Fighter 6. So things are looking good for Callisto Protocol. A poll for you to vote on for next episode. What was your favorite publisher showcase this June? Was it Xbox and Bethesda? Was it PlayStation? Was it Capcom? Make sure to vote at IGN.com, and we'll share the results with you next episode. And that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch, a special Summer of Gaming edition. Thank you to both Jonathan and Ryan. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes here to make this episode possible. We will return. Next Gen Console Watch will return next Friday, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern, with more PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news. We'll see you then.